Hi, and welcome to the Resistance. I have some tips for you that I learned through my own experiences many years ago. And I just want to share them to help get you off on the right foot. Um, First is to keep the goal in mind, and the main goal is right now to get 3.5% of the population in active resistance. There is science behind this. That go look at the Chenoweth study. They went and they studied different dictatorships and how they fell. And the common variable that they found was that 3.5% of the population was engaged in active rebellion, active dissent. Okay, this doesn't have to be violent. In fact, they also talked about difference between violence and nonviolence. They preferred nonviolence only because it got people to that 3.5% faster. But the thing that makes dictators fall is when 3.5% of the population is engaged in active dissent. That is the goal. That is the win condition. We can get there. Second thing I want you to focus on, the second tip, is that we need to build local and to get active local and build local mutual aid and support networks. First of all, it is important to get involved in local governments. Local governments give you control over your area, that they can help you to secure resources. They can help you to create zones of safety. The right, they've been trying to take control of the local governments for years. In some places, they've been very successful and done a lot of harm in the process. They've instead created the zones of hazard for certain populations. You can do the same thing to create zones of safety. So do that. Those are the forms of government you're going to have the most ability to take direct control over. The second is, again, we have to also build mutual support and mutual aid networks here. Some of that is going to be for protest and activism supports. Okay, protests are going to need food, they're going to need water, they're going to need art supplies, they're going to need medical supplies. And because the government's not going to fight fair, they're going to need bail funds, and they're going to need jail support. Okay. On top of that, though, communities are going to need to build mutual support, mutual resource networks, food sharing programs, medical programs. This is because they are fast tracking to the loyalty above competence phase of fascism right now. And because of that, things are going to fall apart. And so you are going to need to take care of you and the people around you, and the mutual aid networks that you build will do that. Okay. In addition, government legitimacy comes from the perception of their ability to provide services for citizens. When you are building support networks in a community and taking over that role, you are eroding that legitimacy. And when they start to fail, that further erodes the legitimacy, and that's going to contribute to the fall as well. But in addition, that activist providing, that social group providing for the social services also is an incredible threat, like I said, to the legitimacy. The Black Panther Party, what scared the government the most about them was not them walking around with guns, it was not the violence. It was when they started taking care of their communities better than the government could. Again, that is the big threat that the government is going to fear. And that's a threat you build up without direct confrontation and working in parallel. So build those local support and mutual aid networks. Third, when you're going to be wanting to get involved in activist groups. So some tips for that. First, look for the groups with the activist veterans, especially people of color, LGBT veterans, members of marginalized communities who have been working in activism for decades. Everyone comes in with these idealistic goals, with these grand philosophies, but the veterans of these communities, they know what works and what doesn't. All right. Listen to them. They've got that wisdom through experience. Second, if you're seeing a new group or you're seeing new leaders come up, vet them. Okay. Most of them are going to be well-meaning. Most of them just want to help. There are going to be bad actors who are looking to take advantage of the situation to build up their own renown, to build up their own celebrity, to take leadership positions. They're doing it for their own, and they'll want to do things for their own purpose, even if it means hurting everything else. That's not going to be the majority, but they're going to be there. So you're going to have to vet the leaders in the community and the groups that you will work with. One of the biggest red flags that I found is when an activist or a group is silencing or not centering marginalized voices. Or if they're part of a marginalized group, they're only elevating their group while silencing everyone else's voice. But that refusal to center and that silencing of marginalized voices, that is a red flag that says that they are in it for themselves and they don't care about the community. They don't care about the overall goal. And again, they're the ones most likely to turn around and hurt everyone else. I learned this through hard experience. One of the first groups I worked with, leader came in with a grand plan. Quickly, we started to notice he was silencing the other voices. He turned alt-right very quickly. Okay, because again, it was all about him, wasn't about the cause. Red flag. I would also say be careful with agitators. Most of them are just angry, and there's a good reason why they're angry, and that anger is valid. But there's also going to be people there who are agitating with the purpose to sabotage the cause. Government agents are known to go in and suggest specific violent actions. We've seen protests where someone will walk in and smash windows, and they get traced back to alt-right and white supremacist gangs. So be careful of those agitators. There may be greater harm that they end up doing. On the other side of things, if you are a nonviolent activist, and I fall into that category, and so please listen, because this is from my experience trying to work as a nonviolent activist. Please do not try to preach philosophy. Please do not talk about morals. Don't talk about shoulds. Don't try to tone police and try to talk about how we should or shouldn't be talking. Focus instead on nonviolent tactics, and focus instead on solution-oriented tactics, all right? When you're talking that philosophy, when you're talking that morality of violence versus nonviolence, when the debates come up, you may be saying that nonviolence works best. What people will most often hear is they're not allowed to be angry, or that they're just supposed to sit and do nothing. And that may not be what you're saying, but that is often what's heard. And you have to focus on making sure you're being heard the best you can. Stay away from those conversations, because what I have found is that when you start talking and offering the nonviolent tactics, when you start offering the solutions and the innovative and creative strategies that come with nonviolence, people like those. People will agree with those and do those, because in the end, they don't want to be, most of them don't want to be violent. They just want to make sure that they can fix the situation. They want to direct their anger, constructively. So give them their way. Stay away from the morality. That's going to work better. Don't talk about philosophy. Talk about effectiveness. That the philosophy invalidates, the tactics empower. Please remember that. Finally, art, music, and spectacle are going to be your greatest allies. Okay? They will encourage people to participate. I know this personally. I may have been running around in a T-Rex costume for many protests, and people started coming because they appreciated the fact I was there. Okay? It brought people in. It also de-escalated situations. I remember a time when there was an alt-right agitator who would show up at a protest regularly and just do whatever they could to agitate. And when I started the first time I showed up in that costume, he took one look at me, shook his head, walked off, left everything alone. So there is a value there, all right? But the other thing is art and music and spectacle. it creates a culture of resistance. And when you create that culture, it brings people in, and that brings you closer to that 3.5%. And again, that's the win condition. So please take this to heart and be safe out there. We've won before, and we can win again.